right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the BoomBastiCAST, but not just any old episode of the BoomBastiCAST, ladies and gentlemen. We have an exclusive here for you today. You know what I mean? This is our first ever exclusive. In a moment, we're going to be sitting down with the director extraordinaire who brought you films like Hatchet III, three of my favorite Slayer music videos, music video for Exodus, you know what I mean? And the director of the film right now killing it in theaters, horror comedy starring the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
The film is Studio 666. Me and Hawkman went to go see it earlier this week, and it was a lot of fun. Great gore, good laughs, really good time. And I ain't just saying it to say it. Why would I do that? Okay? I don't do shit like that. All right? We fighting for good horror up in here. Giving good horror a fucking breath of fresh air so we can get more good horror. You know what I mean?
Heck yeah.
Fuck yeah. Absolutely. So, without any further ado, the director of Studio 666, the great BJ McDonnell. Welcome to the BoomBastiCAST. BJ, fantastic to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. You know, so we usually like to start off with like how it all started, so to speak. So like, when did you catch that bug for horror and films? You know what I mean? As a kid, I assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. As a kid, I've told people before, like my grandfather was an old actor from back in the day. As a young kid, I'd come back and forth to California, like to their house, because I grew up in Florida. Basically, I would go to film sets and always thought it was pretty interesting stuff to see like him around doing all that. And then like my family, like basically they were very loose about like me like watching TV or the things that actually I watch. Like a lot of times now I see people, very like, with their kids are very like aware of what they're watching on TV. There's a lot of crazy stuff. My family was not that crazy about that. They just were like, here's HBO. We'll see you later. Okay, HBO was like the new jam back then. It's like the whole intro with the toy models going over the hills and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I started watching like John Carpenter films, like Escape from New York, and like I saw Heavy Metal, the cartoon, like that totally like freaked me out and changed my life. I saw The Deep, I saw like all sorts of crazy, Chud. I saw like all these movies like that would come on HBO, and I just thought they were so. As a kid, they were frightening, but they were so interesting that I couldn't stop checking them out, and then lo and behold, we have the video rental stores with just the box art and everything. I would see like, down to like Evil Dead 2, like when you'd see the skull with the eyes looking at you, I was like, well, I don't even know what this is, but I'm going to check it out because this has got to be kind of rad.
Yeah.
Which got me into Sam Raimi. It's basically like that kind of that's how all my love of horror came up. It was just like a lot of it was box art, seeing like cool imagery and just the way that horror films made me feel. As a kid, like freaked me out, but I loved them. It was an amusement park ride for me. Like I couldn't get enough of it. And that's really how my love of horror began, and it just hasn't stopped, and I'm always down to check out any and all types of horror films.
We appreciate that.
Yeah,
it's funny. You'll see like there's almost like a line in horror where you have like your slasher, blood and guts and all that, and then you have like your more, if you will, smarter horror movies like Hereditary and Midsommar and stuff like that. It's funny when you see horror fans that kind of clash like those two, and then you have TV horror too, because TV horror is huge now as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is. That's the thing. It's like all those films. I love all that stuff. I just don't stick to like oh, I'm only down with the 80s style or like whatever. Like I like the Hereditaries, I like The Witch, I like all those kind of types of movies. But like like when it comes down to the movie that we just did, Studio 666, we gunned more for that feel of what we were trying to do. We weren't trying to make Hereditary with the Foo Fighters.
Right. You guys were going after that 80s band movie type vibe.
I would love to see that. I would love to see Hereditary version with the Foo Fighters.
Hereditary with the Foo Fighters, yeah. It'll be a bit more serious. That much.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how serious can they really get? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, and look, we all like, again, like when we were doing this movie, it was full on. Like we wanted to keep keep in the vein of their videos, like the past, like funny videos, and we really wanted to make it just more about being a fun film for people to just enjoy. It's like more of like, to me, it's more of like a movie that you see with your friends and you get drinks and get stoned and have a good time watching it, and that's really like what we wanted to make.
Yeah. Now I know the Foo Fighters never strayed away from acting and like being very campy and over the top in their own music videos.
Right.
And this Studio 666, which is great. We went to go see it. It was awesome. Originally, it was a Dave Grohl idea, right? From his story.
Yeah, he came up with the concept. I guess people had been talking to him before, like, say, you should make a movie, you should make a horror film. He kind of brushed it off. And then while they were recording Medicine at Midnight in the house in Encino, that's very strange. It's the house you see in the movie. It's a very strange house. He got the idea. He's like, you know what? Maybe I will do this. So he made a pitch idea, and then he went to his buddies Jim Rhoda and John Ramsey, who are friends of mine. They're producers on Sonic Highways and Sound City. They're like, hey, he's like, I'm thinking about doing this thing. You know, like, what do you think? They're like, oh, we got to send this to our friend BJ. You know, he did like the Slayer music videos, and Dave was like, oh yeah, let's send it to him. So I got a hold of his pitch. And then I was like, well, you know what? I think this is cool, but we need to add a little bit more elements to it. And I added like all the backstory of like the band, the Dream Widow band. Because it originally was just kind of like the caretaker Greg Knoll character. There was no like shadow people. There was no like lure of the band or the cursed band that you see in the film now. So I added that stuff, and then I made a pitch book, lookbook of how I thought it should look and the vibe and like how we should shoot it, and like referenced a bunch of directors and other movies of how it should all go, including the old school band movies. Because if we're working with a band, we should definitely try to make sure we're making a movie that kind of follows that template and really kind of like tip of the hat to like the Beatles and the Monkees. And so we got together with that, and he loved it, and away we went.
Yeah, the Beatles and the Monkees definitely. You know, I when I was younger, the Monkees was like before school. They'd play it before school, which was cool.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, and there was I couldn't tell you any episodes or any scenarios. But I remember watching every single one of those shows and having a great time. It was just so fun. You know, they were just fun shows.
They were a very happy band. They were happy all the time.
You know, I can't see any of them, you know, killing each other off because of a cursed book or a curse anything.
Well, that's the thing. Possession's a hell of a drug, and you got to be careful with it.
Yeah, once you first try it, you might not be able to stop.
Yeah, I thought this film would be a great companion film, double feature with like Tenacious D's "Pick a Destiny."
Oh yeah, a lot of people wish you would have brought them on. It was funny because there was a time where we were like, after we got done shooting, I was like, it would be kind of cool to do like an Avengers style ending of the movie where, you know, Jack Black and they come to the house, like, and they just find the book, and it's just like those nods, like you like it, because we end on the book, you know, in the movie, and then, you know, if we at the credits, it'd be cool if you just started on that, like during the day, saw, you know, some feet come up and tilt up, and it's them, and then they kind of take it, and it would just cut. It would be kind of fun.
You can have that. What is it? Jason Goes to Hell ending where Jack Black's hand comes up and grabs the book or something.
Exactly, right. Sadly, though, the house that we shot at just recently got completely torn down.
No.
Gone, totally gone. Yeah.
I heard that you had ideas for a sequel.
Oh, I got ideas.
Oh yeah.
I got some good ideas. I can't share those ideas, but
of course.
I know how to bring it all back and how to get everybody. I know how to get everybody back. It's a good way to do it. But we've also talked about other genres of like not doing horror, like honestly, like doing something more like a different, like an action film or something crazy like that, or like a Gilligan's Island type of movie with starring them. So
I can see that. Yeah.
We've been throwing around some ideas. We'll see how this one does, and we'll go from there.
You mentioned, you know, those music videos you did with Slayer that are really cool. They're up on YouTube for anybody who wants to see them. A lot of, you know, the theatrics in it, you know what I mean? Very cinematic.
Yeah.
Kerry King, of course, had a cameo in the film.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So how long do you get the history go back with Slayer? A good bit. Musically,
since I was a kid, like since I was in high school, like I remember like listening to Slayer and really loving their music. It's one of those things where I never in my head ever went, man, I'm going to work with Slayer one day. You know, like I never once thought that this was ever going to be a thing that ever happened. I just happened to find out that when they were getting ready to release the Repentless album, that they wanted to do a music video, and over at Nuclear Blast Records, they were talking to a bunch of different horror directors, and they said, "Hey, can you come in and just talk to us?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." Drove down, met Gerardo, who runs the place, and he goes, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I wish I could have planned. I don't have anything to really tell you or show you right now." I said, "But here's what I do have." I said, Slayer's music videos are cool, and I love the music. However, I don't think there's a music video that's really portrayed Slayer, or like kind of the speed or the tone of the music or the lyrics or things like that. Old videos are great. I think now, because you don't have just MTV and a lot of censorship, now we can actually make a Slayer video that's really, to me, says Slayer.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Oh, that's cool. All right." So I went home. They're like, "Write us some stuff." I wrote 2 pitches, and one is their video Repentless that they did. The other one was for the song Repentless, but it would have cost a lot more money. It was like this crazy biker cannibal like music video that was out of control, and Kerry loved it. Like, he was like, "That's so cool," but we didn't have the money for it. So we went with they loved the Repentless idea, and they said, "Let's hire BJ to do this." And we did Repentless, and when that came out, it did so, like, people loved that video so much that Gerardo called me and goes, "I talked to the guys, do we want to do 2 more music videos, so can we make a prequel and a sequel?" So I took that Repentless video, the jail cell, and then I had to write a story about what happens before, and then I had to make a finale story. So it was fun. So my history with them is just from the Repentless album starting at 2015.
Yeah, those are great videos. Now with Carrie's name Krug, is that a throwback to Freddy Krueger?
I always thought it was a throwback to Freddy Krueger, and then when I read the script, I thought that, because I didn't write it. But the character Krug, I was like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. But come to find out, I think the writers actually do have a friend who they kind of modeled it after, whose name is Krug. That's what I heard. But I did, when I read the script, I was like, that's funny, because they're going after Krug for Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, he doesn't quite complete the film, doesn't make the film, and his death was kind of a little Kruger-like, I felt. You know what I mean?
A little bit. Yep. It definitely was.
Did any of the band members have any reservations? I know that they did the music videos and stuff, but a movie is such a massive undertaking. Was there any reservations about it?
I think there was a little bit of nervousness at the beginning of, like, the whole thing of, like, before, like, when we were in pre-pro talking about the things, or I think, no one ever really said it, but I could feel a little bit of it. And I think that there was a little bit, but, like, once we started shooting and everybody started going, "Oh no, okay, this is how it works," or, because music videos are easy. You basically, you make a whole situation, and it's just looks, no one's talking. It's all run by the music. Movies, on the other hand, it's all dialogue driven and emotion driven, and the characters or the people who are playing themselves have to drive the force and be believable. And I think that was the scariest part. But once we got in there and I said, "Hey, guys, just be yourselves, because this is who you are. If we take it that way, it's going to be so much easier." And it kind of loosened everybody up, and they had a lot more fun with it. So once we got that vibe going in, like, the first week, everybody started having so much fun, and then we knew what we were really doing at that point. I approached it more in that world, like, let them be really who they are.
Yeah. And there was a lot of really cool cameos in it. Will Forte is in there. Great, fantastic. You worked with him on MacGruber years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys, like, buddy up then and just kind of wait for the perfect opportunity to work together, or how'd that come about?
I met Will on MacGruber. We all became friends at that point. And Will's such a cool dude, such a nice, like, warm guy. Like, he's actually just a bud. And so I kept in touch with him, and then I would see him every now and then on some other movies that I'd worked on. He would always come in, just because I kind of ran around with, as a camera operator, with sort of that crowd a bit. Yeah. So when you see Will, it's like, "Oh, what's up, man?" It's like Jorma Taccone, the Lonely Island guys, and Seth Rogen and those guys. I worked a lot with them, and they all kind of know each other. So over the years, we just kind of all kept in contact. And then when this part came up, I was just like, it'd be rad. Let's see if Will will come do it. So I just called him and said, "Hey, dude, like, there's this one part, I know you're busy. Can you come out and play this one character?" And he, like, his schedule was so busy, but he's like, "Oh, let me make it work." He, like, muscled around a couple things, and we got Will, and like, super pumped about that. He's so fun to work with and hilarious to watch.
He looks like a lot of fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's killing.
Yeah. Was improv? Was improv big on the set, or does it go back and forth between whoever you're dealing with acting?
No, improv, we made it more about the improv when it came down to it, because it just was, again, I think it made everybody a little more comfortable. So that's another reason why we had like Whitney Cummings and Jeff Garlin,
Yes.
Will Forte and Leslie Grossman, because we knew that they could go off the script, go off the script, but also making sure we stayed on, topic, and made sure we didn't like totally drive the train to some other thing and have to do a whole rewrite. And so, improv was a big deal in it. Yes, we followed the script and we followed exactly what was supposed to happen, but I let more of a free reign thing go on and on, as long as they were in the mode and in the mood and in like emotionally there, like what was going on during that scene. I let them kind of just say what they would say to each other, and it was more fun doing it that way, because it's funny to watch the guys interact like that.
Yeah, I dig that. Yeah, all the guys, they're natural up there, and they play off each other very well. It has that Monkees vibe, definitely. You know what I mean?
That's what we're going for. Yeah,
for sure. It's an ensemble cast. It's difficult to do when you have a handful of main characters. You know what I mean? That gets tricky.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like when you're not used to acting, it's like we also had to kind of make sure that everybody had the right, with continuity. That's another thing. You have to make sure they're try to at least hit their marks as best as they can, or like, if they're holding like, a phone in this hand and then like the next take, they all of a sudden put it in this other hand, we'd have to be like, oh, hey, hey, you got to put the phone in your right. And they're like, oh yeah. It was a big learning experience for them too. And it's kind of adorable to watch like rock and roll guys that know, and they're so good at what they do, like actually learning how films are actually made, like the filmmaking technique. Because music videos, again, I said, it's like 1 or 2 day shoots, you get in and get out. This is a whole nother beast.
For sure.
Yeah,
it's tricky.
It is.
It's a lot, you know what I mean? Mainly night shoots, it felt like, for a lot of the action stuff, at least, you know what I mean? Which adds a whole different, as a camera operator, that's a whole nightmare in itself.
Yeah.
I mean?
It wasn't actually too many nights, actually. It wasn't too bad of nights. We basically had, I don't know, I would say we had about a week of nights out of the whole thing. It wasn't anything crazy. And in some of the scenes we'd do splits, like we'd shoot like, from noon to like midnight that night. So I hate doing nights. I can't stand shooting nights. And, but sometimes you can't avoid it. Like the whole ending sequence. Yes. Those were all nights. We had to have full nights to get that whole thing done. Yeah. So it wasn't too bad though.
There was a lot of Easter eggs in there that were really fun, throwback to horror and stuff like that. The Evil Dead with the reel-to-reel, that was very, that got me. But the biggest pop that I think I had of an Easter egg was at one point in the film, I won't say where, but there's the Foo Fighters gun from the first album. And I got excited when I seen that in the movie. I was like, fuck yeah, I haven't seen that in a while, yeah.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, we brought that out from Dave's place, and we had to when you're doing all those kind of cool things, you got to give like the Foo fans something. There was other stuff in that basement. There was other props in there that were from like the Everlong video. But we just, when you're cutting a movie, you can only put in so many things. And honestly, that ray gun is to me very iconic. Like when you see that, you go, oh, hey, there it is. Because the other stuff was like a 2x4 or something like that. It was like wasn't that noticeable. Yeah. But the ray gun, that's a good one.
That's very cool that Dave still has the gun, because I always figured it was just like stock footage photo that they bought for the album. They actually have the gun.
They have the gun, and
cool.
if you go to 606 or whatever, it's like kind of amazing, like walk through time, because Dave does keep a lot of stuff. He's very sentimental about things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat, like when you're walking and seeing like all the records on the walls of what they did, and and not just Foo Fighters stuff, like doing all the all the other bands and all the bands that he's recorded over at 606, and just it's like a walk through time. And it's also funny because they also collect fan art. So people that go to shows and things that like draw paintings of them and stuff, they have a ton of that like in their studio. Like it's all over the place. It's cool because they still love it. They're not jaded. They're still like very into it, and they're still like they always have a good time with what they're doing. And they collect stuff from the fans. It's kind of great.
Yeah, they seem very cool. I mean, they got to be super cool in order, because the movie a little bit pokes fun at themselves a little bit. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
totally.
As,
I mean, it's full bore makes fun of themselves. Like
yeah, yeah.
they knew what they were getting into.
You know, as they approach that 10th album, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and Jeff Garlin, of course, coming in, that's fantastic, and he really plays like a record executive all the way to the end perfectly. You know what I mean?
He played the part perfectly.
Yeah,
I
a
believe
lot of
all
fun.
record execs are either possessed or the devil themselves. So you know,
Yeah, right? Oh man, yeah, he pulled it out pretty good. But he knew what he was doing when we were doing that role too. He hammed that up really good.
He was great, and then I'm trying not to spoil anything because the movie's still in theaters and everybody go check it out. But there's a part when he gets a little more sinister than other parts, and you can really see it in his face. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always a big fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, he's very good with that. So we were lucky to have him. You know, we were lucky to get Jenna Ortega. I mean, that was like, it's crazy because when we got her, it was funny because me and my wife were, you know, because the movie, I wanted to open the movie like extremely like not like what people would think it is going to be. I wanted to make it like, because I think everybody thought when the movie started it's going to be like the Everlong video or it's going to be really fun. I wanted to make it more of like a dark, like, whoa, what are we getting into kind of a deal. And I remember like going, we need somebody really strong to open this movie. We need whatever actress we get, she has to be really emotionally strong.
Yeah.
And we went through, you know, Wendy, our casting agent, she sent us a bunch of audition tapes. Me and my wife sat through and just watched a bunch. There's some really good ones. But then we saw Jenna and we saw a performance from you. And I was like, right then I was like, we got to get her. This girl's fantastic. And then little did we know, after we had shot the movie, she's in Scream, and now she's doing Tim Burton's Addams Family, like doing Wednesday. And I mean, like, again, she was such a cool like person to work with. We were so lucky. You know, like I really hope that I get to work with her, like, and have more of a part for her on the next one, because she is really like she's a wonderful person and she's a great actress. So we were lucky.
Yeah. Now your wife Adrienne, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
She did some makeup effects on the work on the film.
I met my wife because she does makeup like years ago, and basically she helps me out with like any projects I do. She worked with Tony Gardner on the Slayer stuff. She's worked with Tony on other things too. She's worked with a bunch of like other makeup artists like Chris Nelson, and you know we just kind of know the makeup people. But yeah, she came in and worked on the movie also with us and did a bunch of makeup on it, you know, as well as helping me out offset. Like at home, I would, you know, come home and be like, well, I'm thinking about this idea. What do you think? I riff it off of her, and like, you know, I take her suggestions and her ideas too, like, to heart. And you know, she's my partner.
Oh, for sure. A supportive partner is a great partner.
Oh yeah, she's got to put up with me when I'm totally freaking out. probably a harder job than anything else, than anything we have to do.
The most important job going down.
Oh yeah.
Special effects were phenomenal in this movie. You know what I mean? You guys didn't skimp out in the slightest on that, which I thought was great, because when you have a movie that's it's a comedy horror, you know what I mean? A lot of comedy in there. You kind of worry, you know, they're going to skimp on the effect, just throw a little bit of blood, you know, to get the day going. But you guys killed it with that, yeah.
Again, that's going back into the tone of what we were trying to do, because if you're trying to make an old school band movie like this one, and it's like having the band feel, but it's a horror film, you have to mix that with practical effects. You have to make it feel like the Friday the 13th or the Halloweens or, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street kind of vibe, and the blood and gore. Like, if you tried to cheap out on that and do just all CG blood and things, it wouldn't have worked. Yeah. You know, and that was the whole, like, we planned that going in, is that it has to be practical effects. And then we had Tony Gardner, who we talked to, and we said, hey, you know, here's all the things that are going to happen in the movie. What things have you, as in your whole career, Tony, from doing everybody else's movies, what are some kills that you want to do? Tony Gardner, the makeup effects guy, what do you want to do? And he had all these ideas, and we took those ideas, and that's what we incorporated into the kills and like why they came about. So we basically also let Tony kind of like live his dream with the kills, because he was going to make the effects also. And it was just fun because, you know, he got to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, I liked it. There was some CGI vomit in there. A lot of vomit. So you gotta love the vomit. Vomit nose.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of that. And we kept it at a cheese factor because we knew what we were doing. It's supposed to be funny looking. It's supposed to be a bit cheap looking. I mean, it's not. the thing is, it's not CGI. It's not CG puke. Like it's just plates. It's elements. So
Okay.
so I would, we lock a camera off. You have Dave do the whole thing, and he's like playing the guitar. Then he turns his mouth and goes, ah, like that. And then once we get the take we like, we're like, all right. He steps off the set. I do an overlay, and then we get the special effects guys in there, and they bring in a giant hose that just splatters puke against the wall, or shoots the puke out. And so the thing is with the movie, most of the stuff you saw, even the shadow people, the faces when the mouths open, that's not CG. It's actually, we had people in suits with the red eyes, and they were pitch black, and they were actually people there in these suits, but they didn't have the mouths didn't work. We didn't have the budget for that. Yeah. Tony did make one head that we put against green screen, and we would open the mouth up and down and like do it different speeds, and we turn it like 3/4, then profile and do it the other ways. And so when you see the shadow people in the movie, the faces on them aren't CG. We took the face from that plate, from the mandible mouth moving head, and we placed it on the actual people that are in the shot. Yeah. So yes, CG was used, but it was practical laid on top of practical, just like the vomit.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the only way to do it. There's a couple little enhanced blood shots that we did in there that are CG, but other than that, for the most part, almost all. I mean, the big blood gags, that's all real.
Word. Do you know how many gallons you guys went through?
There's one scene that is insane, and we literally had these giant, they were huge, these huge, black canisters that were 4 foot by 4 foot high, and we had a couple of them, and they were completely filled with blood. And then we had these huge turbo jets that had to do what it did. And at the end of the day, after we shot that scene, as I was walking into my car in Encino, there was actually a river of blood going down the roads of Encino of the effect that we had just done. And it was just this red river flowing by all these really expensive homes. You kind of look down at that and you just go, all right, but I guess bucket list. We did that. We just bloodied up Encino. It's kind of rad.
It's like a Pink Floyd music video a little bit.
Oh yeah, totally.
Get the wall going.
Yeah, and that we had to build half the set too, because we shot the beginning of that sequence actually in the guest house of that property, and we were trying to figure out all right, how are we going to keep this whole set clean? Once we're done, how are we going to do this? We came up with all these ideas, but it was if we do this practically in this set, it's actually going to ruin the house. It's going to totally destroy it. So we actually had to build a giant 3-walled facade of what we to the T of exactly what it was. Yeah. And we had to build that in the parking lot. And that's the only way we could do it. Because once we did that effect, it was it was insane how much blood was flying.
Now, as a director, do you before the film shoots, do you like to bring people into a screening room to watch horror, or give them a list of the vibe that you're going for, or films that, they should see, must see horror films for anybody? And actually, with the dudes of Foo Fighters, are they typically horror fans, or are they going for the ride type deal?
I know Dave is. Dave, he's a horror fan. I honestly, usually when I'm directing stuff, and if there's something I want to get a vibe, I'll send a recommendation saying this is the vibe we're going for.
Right.
When we did the Slayer video, You Against You, I was talking to my buddy Jason, who's in that, and some of the other actors, this is basically the John Wick version of what we did. So let's just watch John Wick, And so that was kind of a play on that. This movie with Studio 666, I didn't want the guys to get any kind of preconditioned idea of what they should do. I just said, we're going to come in, you guys are going to be who you are. And I didn't want to ruin anything, or I didn't want them to feel like they needed to emulate somebody else's performance or really feel like we're doing that vibe. I wanted them to come in and be like, oh, what are we doing? Oh, this is great. We're ourselves. Yeah. So this one was different. I didn't want anybody to really get any kind of idea of what we were doing, and just kind of took them out of the, moment. Yeah,
that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Living legend, Jonathan Carpenter. Woo!
Right.
Gigantor, dude. Not only a great cameo, but the opening sequence, fantastic. You know what I mean? You got any cool stories of working with him?
I mean, honestly, it was one of the, I don't get, I've been doing movies for over 2 decades, and I rarely, hardly ever get starstruck, because I'm just, it's become it's like a mechanic that works on a car every day, and someone goes, oh, you worked on this cool car, I love that car, and they're like, whatever, for me, it's like this kind of the same thing, like where I work with actors a lot, and it's just a job, and you enjoy the good ones, you hate the bad ones. But for me, the John Carpenter thing, going back to talking about how I grew up, watching these movies, me and Dave were talking about the music and the directors we loved, and John Carpenter always did come up, and that's why we pursued John to see if he would actually, do the score. We didn't ask him to be in the movie. We just asked him if he would actually like work and help us out with like a theme song just so we could do it. And he was super down for that because Dave helped out Daniel Davies back in the day. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that stuff. And then we kind of took it one step further and said, well, do you mind coming in and like just playing this one really small part, just because it'll be cool? And he's like, of course I'll come in. So he came in, and honestly, for me, when he did that, I was kind of like, it's one thing when you email back and forth to John Carpenter and say, thank you so much. The theme song you wrote is so cool, blah, blah, blah. It's another thing when he shows up on set and then I'm supposed to direct John Carpenter, and it's like, how do you even do that? Yeah. How is a director supposed to direct like one of the most badass directors of all time that basically made you like the movies that you did?
Yeah.
So I did get a bit starstruck when he came in, but he was so nice and so cool, and like everything was relaxed. Like after he got in there, I had to take a couple breaths, but it was rad. And I'm just honored that he did it, and that's like now a part of something that I've done in my life. Like I take those moments and I really like cherish them always. Like when you get a moment like that really means something so like heartfelt and meaningful to you because of what you've grown up with.
Yeah, the universes have crossed paths.
That was how I felt. Yeah, it was pretty killer. It was pretty killer. Yeah, and then we had Roy Mayorga who did the score. And Roy was in Stone Sour. He played drummer, and also he's in Ministry right now. But Roy's a big John Carpenter fan also. So once we got the theme song from Carpenter and from John, Cody, and Daniel, Roy basically took that theme song to pepper it throughout the rest of the movie, but also going on with his score of what we discussed. So we kind of started the movie very Carpenter-esque to go in line with that. But as the movie progresses and gets bigger and bigger, the score also gets bigger and bigger. You start hearing more of like a symphony kind of sound, like a real big like action movie kind of score. Yeah, we like meshed that. He and Roy did a killer job with that thing. So I'm really excited with the two very awesome composers that I got to work with.
Yeah, the composers did a great job, and it's a difficult task because you're having the horror elements, but you got to have some comedy elements in there too. So it's quite a feat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. And the thing is with movies, in my opinion, score is so important because it's not only with the camera work that tells the story, what's going on visually, but the feel of what's happening in the scenes that you have going on. The score really can make or break that. It really can. And when you get somebody that's so good and realizes what you're trying to portray in the sequence and what's happening on the screen at that time, it makes a huge difference because they know like the feel of the music. So it's score is very important to me.
Yeah. Now all the Dream Widow music that's in it is all the Foo Fighters made that, right?
Dave made that, and Dave did, yeah, because the movie is all about this song Lacrimus de Ebrius, and the song had to have all these crazy different change-ups. So I actually told Dave, like, we need a song that's like pretty long, So Dave's like, I'll go home, I'll record it, and like he had this like whole thing that he made. It was like the song's actually 12 minutes long from front to back. It really is. Like when you have it, I hope it comes out someday. Like I think it is actually, and it's going to be coming out soon. But that song is 12 minutes, but it just goes crazy. It goes from like stoner metal to like punk rock to like black metal to death metal to acoustic, back to stoner metal to 90s style. And it just is all over the place because it's portraying Dave like kind of trying to figure out this whole thing. And it's like the demonic forces in his head and the song that's kind of coming out. Yeah. And it's also like what the original band Dream Widow was trying to also come up with too. It kind of the spirit gets into Dave, and that's what they're still trying to continue what's happening.
Yeah.
And then the guys obviously had to learn the song like once we got it on set. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
You were like the perfect dude to direct this, you know what I mean? With the heavy metal with the music videos, Hatchet III, of course, which I think Hatchet III is the best put together Hatchet film.
Oh,
no offense to Adam Green. You know what I mean? But
I appreciate that.
Hey, I remember watching that and being like, there's something about this movie that is above the other ones. You know what I mean?
I feel like that movie, going off on that, is like my whole thing is I couldn't break I couldn't change what Adam wanted to do with like, honestly, I wanted to go darker, like a darker story with Victor Crowley. I wanted to kind of get out of like the cheesiness of it. But at the same time, you can't get out of that once it's already been established. And, you know, the people that want to see that movie want to keep that kind of vibe, you know, and I wanted to make it darker. So my change in the whole thing was we'll keep that whole storyline and kind of the sensibilities and the silliness of it. But I wanted to make the movie way more cinematic. I wanted to make it feel like a bigger movie, even though it was the smallest budget of them all. You know, even to the decision to actually shoot the movie in Louisiana, you know, because the other two we shot, like the first one we shot like we did some opening stuff actually in New Orleans for like a couple days, and the rest of it was shot out in the desert, you know. So like we were out in Sable Ranch, and there was just fake moss they threw in the trees at night, and you can't tell because it's dark out. You don't know where you're at. And the other part two is all shot for the most part. We shot a little bit of stuff in New Orleans, just so you had a little bit of that, but then like maybe another 4 days of something like shooting just like plate shot, like the opening when they're outside. And then we shot the rest of that on a sound stage, and we literally walked around the same tree like over and over because it was just a stage where you just move plants around. It's kind of like when they did The Descent where they just moved boulders. You know, they're on the stage, they just move boulders, and it's like, oh, you're in a different part of the cave. I wanted to make sure that we expanded the world of what Hatchet 3 was. I wanted to make sure it felt bigger, and that no matter where we pointed that lens, because I changed the aspect ratio to 2:40 because the other ones were like 16:9. Basically, I wanted to be able to point the camera anywhere and just get a really cinematic like vibe. And I wanted to make sure Victor Crowley felt darker. I wanted him to like be more contrast lighting, fire lit. I wanted him to be like scarier in that world. So that's kind of like my approach on like when I did that.
Yeah, you definitely accomplished that for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that you toured in a punk band as a youth, right?
I did.
Yeah, I heard about this. So, you know, there's a lot of crossover with music and film, I realize, you know, just that whole world, you know what I mean? Do you think there's any part of that touring that prepared you for getting into filmmaking?
It's funny because I started making films when I was a kid because of my grandfather. Me and my friends, like when we were really young, would make like all these stupid like action movies with like the VHS camera, and we'd have the 2 VCRs, and we'd hit play and record real quick and like try to edit that way. It was like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But we had fun. You know, I think everybody did that back then. It's our age. Like, it's just like, it was so hard to do. And it's always like, you know, it was fun.
Yeah.
But I seriously, like, I strayed off of that when I got really into the music scene, and I kind of quit making home movies. I was always taking photos and stuff on tour, but I got into the punk band and we started touring, and we were always touring for like 5-6 years. We were doing that. We were putting out albums. I knew how to, I knew what it was like to tour. I knew what it was like to record albums. I knew like when you bicker with your bandmates over like certain ideas in your songs. And when that dream went down the hill, which is a bummer. I still want to be a rocker. It's too late for me. I said, screw this. I'm moving to California, and I'm going to try to pursue, you know, a career in directing and filmmaking. And that's what I did, you know, and I left and jumped back into it. But I do think for things like the music videos, and the reason why I get to, you know, play around with these cool bands and like work with the Foo Fighters and stuff is because in a movie like this, I feel like if you don't understand what it's like to be a part of these things, if you don't know what it's like to tour, if you don't know what it's like to record or be in a room with your buddies and doing all this stuff, you don't really get the real vibe. And I think we capture that more because I went through it. I've been through it.
Yeah, bands are tough, you know what I mean? Like, even when you're friends and everybody's cool, there's always like clashes of opinions and sometimes, you know what I mean?
It's like, it's amazing that bands actually stay together all the times, or like, especially like the Foo Fighters, if you like that, is over like 30 years or whatever. It's like, you know, it's because you have to love the people you're around all the time. When you're stuck in a small van with people and you're on tour, I mean, it doesn't take long for tensions to start to fly because people start getting irritated.
Right.
You know? And I mean, I remember like, real quick story, like we were in our van, we were tired, we had to stop, and I'll never forget me and the drummer up in the bunk, and the guitar player was on a seat, and our other guitar player was snoring so bad. We're like, dude, you got to get out of here. And he got so mad, he took his sleeping bag out and he ran out. And I remember like visually like looking out the front windshield, and we were at one of those rest stops, you know, like on the side of the freeway, and he went and he laid on a picnic table, and I remember looking at my buddy Jody being like, oh man, I feel bad that Andrew's actually out there sleeping outside, but he's just snoring. Joey's like, I can't sleep, he's snoring. I'm like, all right. And I just kind of watched, and It's like the timers went off and all these sprinklers started going off on Andrew. And you could see like you see the sleeping bag going all over the place. And we started dying laughing. He comes stomping in the car and he gets in, he goes, screw it, we're driving to the next city. And then he just was up and just driving us. It was just like moments like that. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So dumb.
That'd be perfect for a movie.
Oh, dude, I could do a ridiculous punk rock movie about crazy touring stuff.
Did you ever see Green Room?
I love Green Room. And it actually, the thing about that movie,
Yeah,
it is not far off of the truth of something that could really happen, because me and my guys wound up in some very gnarly venues because we would have someone book them for us, like a booking agent. And then we would show up to, like, honestly, like, I'm not going to say I haven't played at one of those kind of venues because we didn't know what we were getting into, but your booking agent's like, oh, punk rock bands like to play here. And you show up and you're like, ooh, this isn't good, man.
yeah.
You know, and then you're just like, let's play the set and get out of here.
Yeah.
So I related really like pretty heavily with Green Room because there's a lot of truth into that whole thing. You know, I thought it was a really well-made movie, especially like involving a punk band that's like, unfortunately winds up in like a really bad place.
Yeah, for sure. No, that was a masterpiece.
I loved it. I love anything that guy does. He's a great director. Blue Ruin is so good.
Yeah, Jeremy Saulner. Yeah, Blue Ruin. Did you just say Blue Ruin?
Love Blue Ruin.
Fantastic. Even the winter one he did for Netflix was really good too.
Really good. He's really great. I really like his stuff.
So with Whitney Cummings, you know, she was, you know, very beautiful, very funny. You know, how'd she kind of come into the mix from the comedy world?
She was another one of Dave's hires because they actually know each other from the past. Okay. And when we were reading the script, we were just like, you know, we were like, all right, who's going to play this? And he's, you know, we're like, you know, Whitney Cummings is going to be like, she would be perfect for this role because she's just so fun. And it is that whole thing where we knew she could do a lot of good improv. So it was going to mix well with the guys. And that's how she really came into the fold. We, you know, again, she was a blast to work with. Everybody's laughing. You know, it's amazing we made our days because everybody was laughing so hard and a lot of ADR had to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. It looked like a lot of fun was had on set. You know what I mean?
It was a killer.
You got that Lionel Richie cameo, which was magnificent. You know what I mean? That was great.
Oh, he's awesome. He was a champ.
A trooper, you know what I mean? A very funny scene, you know. I want people to come away with this interview knowing that it's a really fun film.
Yeah, that's
what I mean. That, you know, it's when making a film like that, I feel like there's situations in the mixture that the ball could be dropped or something might not come off the way that it should. And I thought that this was really well executed, like all the way around. You know what I mean? For like what? All right, no problem, man. No problem.
You know, we had a great crew. That's the thing too. Like a lot of people that assembled for this job were they were really good craftsmen at what they did. They were really good friends. Almost everybody on that set I kind of knew because my past as a crew member, which I'm still also a crew member. Yeah. But you know, I've met so many people along the way, and my whole thing is if you surround yourself with like the best people you can, it takes a lot of stress off of you because you know the job's going to get done. And in the end, like I had people come up to me daily being like, BJ, like this is like the best time I've had on set. Like it's been so many years. All we do is laugh and it's so enjoyable, the positivity and everybody just having a good time. And that's what we set out to do. We set out to make a fun movie for people to drink and throw on at a party and have a good time and just laugh. I mean, that was the goal of this film. And I think we did it.
I think so, man. We appreciate you. You're a super talented. You're a super talented dude. You know, the formula that you followed to get to where you are, I think, is something that anybody on the upcome, you know, the come up, will flip it, can kind of appreciate and almost blueprint a little bit. You know what I mean? I think you're doing it, baby. You're doing it. It's a beautiful thing. I always love seeing that, you know?
I think it's important for anybody that wants to work in films, like just getting to that point. I think it's important for people to actually get a on-set experience and learn the crafts of just not, you know, of what the makeup artist does, even down to craft services, to set security, like just knowing, you know, what the grips do, what the electrics do. It's very vital for people to learn a set etiquette because it's going to make you better at what you do. There's some people that get out of like film school and they just go and try to get right into directing and things like that. And say sometimes it's great, but a lot of times, and I've done some films where they're just like, you know, they're like rolling, you know, wild sound, and then the person will be like, "What do you mean wild? What is wild sound? What's that?" And everyone's going, "Shh, shh, what? And then like, you're just like, and they get done, you go, no, you have to get like a room tone in case in editing, you need to get a solid room tone. It's like moments like that. It's kind of funny, but working on a set is the best film school you can possibly ever, you can't pay for that, Right. You'll get paid to do it if you get on the sets, and it's better than any film school you could possibly be in.
For sure. That was very wise. We end the show with one question that we ask everybody.
Oh, I love these. These are always the ones that are the doozies that throw me.
This will warm your heart and make you feel like a hero. That's what this will do.
Okay, great.
We've got a lot of entertainers that listen to the show, whether it be musicians, comedians, filmmakers, actors, authors, whatever you will. And we usually like to ask people, is there anything you do or advice that you could give to somebody when they're pursuing something and they come to a snag or they come to a weird place where, they're just not, not feeling like quitting, but feeling like they need a little something, a little pep. Do you have any advice for those people?
My advice has always been, don't ever lose focus of what you're trying to do. And if you're passionate about where you're trying to go, and even in this career or even music or anything like that, you always have to make sure you're trying to keep going with it and pursue what you're wanting to do. Because I know some people that basically have been like, oh, I want to try to do this thing, but I just can't get away and do, I can't because I have to take care of this job over here. And then I always tell them, well, look, if you keep doing this job over here, you're never going to get to the thing you're trying to do, and a lot of my friends have actually been like, you're right. And they take that advice and then they end up doing what they want to do. So my whole thing is never give up, never stop believing in yourself, and always try to make sure that you're pursuing your dreams, because honestly, dreams do come true if you really want them to, and if you work hard enough at it. And that's, like my whole dream as a kid was becoming, once a rock star. That one didn't come true, but I always wanted to be a filmmaker before that. And here I am.
Yeah. There you have it. Well, BJ, we thank you for your time. We'd love to have you on the show again. You ever want to come on and promote a film or anything else, you're always more than welcome here.
I would love it. Yeah, let's hope I get another film going for that.
Hell yeah. Good luck with the rest of, the theatrical life of it, and when it goes to streaming and DVD, Blu-ray and all that. And the film's really good. Everybody get out there and check it and support it, no matter when you're hearing this. If you can go to theaters, go to theaters. It's a theater movie.
Support small horror. Support small horror, guys. Support horror, please, people. Everybody's always complaining about horror. Go support a good one, and this is a good one. You know what I mean?
Definitely is.
Good time. No, I appreciate it.
All right, have a good one. Thank you. We'll talk soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was another fantastic episode of the BoomBastiCAST. We want to thank the superb, always great BJ McDonnell for coming on the show and giving us an exclusive look at Studio 666 in theaters now. It'll be streaming and on Blu-ray DVD release probably in the next, I'd say, couple of months. They pump them out pretty quick nowadays, I think. I remember you had to wait a year before you'd get movies on DVD and Blu-ray. Now they pump them out quicker, which is beautiful and good for you folks out there that haven't made it out to theater to see that film. You know what I mean? We're telling you now, you should go check it out. And enjoy it and love it. It's good times. Foo Fighters, I remember when the Foo Fighters popped off, you know what I mean? Dave Grohl came from Nirvana, huge Nirvana fan. That first Foo Fighters album was classic, you know what I mean? And then they get better even the further they go, and the hits go on for days, you know what I mean? Very fantastic. And yeah, again, we want to thank BJ for being on the show. We wish him a lot of success with the film and more in the future. And we'll get him back on the show. And thank you, David, for help setting this up. All right, everybody out there, don't forget to check the social medias on Facebook. You know what I mean? Hit us up. Let me know what you like. Boombastic Media on the YouTube. You know what I mean? Hit it up. Subscribe. Let me and Hawk know how you feel about things. Share it on your page so we know you love us. You know what I mean? It's a fantastic deal. If anybody out there wants to spend a little money, we got that Patreon. We got that Boombastic streaming at patreon.com, where we accept money for goods, and we keep it for good. Unfortunately, we don't give it back to you, but we hook you up with entertainment up the yazoo. And what's better than that? Nothing. Studio 666 is the only thing better than that shit. So Pop on there and support everybody that was a part of the show, and we'll catch y'all on the next episode of the BoomBastiCAST.